Hi, friends. Welcome back. So, we're going to talk about Warren Buffett today. He's sitting on a whole bunch of cash, and let's just jump into the details of this stuff. Berkshire Hathaway's cash pile reaches record 325.2 billion. And let's go through the details of this thing. And if you follow the markets, you always want to know what the heck is Buffett up to. Says here Berkshire Hathaway's cash pile reached 325 billion in the third quarter, a record for the conglomerate, as Warren Buffett continued to refrain from major acquisitions while trimming some of his most significant equity stakes. So, my understanding, so he's not buying a ton of stock, but I think he's been buying some Sirius, which is like the radio thing. I know he's been buying some Chubb, which is like insurance stuff, but then he's been trimming a lot of like Bank of America, Apple, and essentially just sitting on a bunch of cash. Let's see what else says here. Yeah, it mentions it. Berkshire once again cut its holdings in Apple. The Omaha, Nebraska-based company said Saturday in a statement its stake in the iPhone maker was valued at 69.9 billion. So he still has quite a bit in this stuff, but he has been selling. At the end of the quarter, down from 84.2 billion in the second quarter. So we can see it's going down, indicating it cut its stake by about 25%. So Berkshire Hathaway again is selling Apple, not buying but selling. Berkshire first disclosed its Apple stake in 2016 and had spent 31.1 billion, so much money, for 908 million Apple shares it held through the end of 2021. Buffett said in May that Apple would likely remain Berkshire's top holding. Okay, so that's still their top holding, indicating that tax issues had motivated the sale. So I always wonder about this when he says this. This is the quote here. I don't mind at all under current conditions building the cash position, he said in an annual shareholder meeting. So I'll let you guys be the judge of that if he sees something in Apple that he doesn't like or it really is a tax thing. Like I said, I think that could be up to interpretation. Also, quote here. I don't think Warren, this is from someone else. I don't think Warren Buffett ever really been super comfortable with tech, said Jim Sahan. That was from someone from Edward Jones. And yeah, Buffett's mostly like insurance, Coca-Cola, and actually I can show you some of his holdings here. I don't think these are the updated numbers, but this will give you a general idea of the stuff that he invests in. So top holdings would be like Apple, American Express, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, Chevron, Occidental, Moody's, Kraft Heinz, and Chubb. So, a lot of insurance, energy, banks, this kind of stuff. I don't think he sold American Express that I'm aware of. And I mean, most people just talk about the Apple and the Bank of America stuff. Also says here, this is this, and people commenting on Berkshire Hathaway. Kathy Seifert, a research analyst at CFRA, said Berkshire's Apple stake was, quote, starting to become an outsized percentage of its overall portfolio. I think it made sense to sort of lighten the exposure a little bit, sir, which I don't disagree necessarily, right? So if, it's crazy outperforming, you might as well take some profit. If you think it's going to go down, I mean, the thing is like, okay, I'll just show you guys this. The thing is with Apple is, how much more are they going to grow? And it's not that it's going to go to zero or anything like that. So I don't think necessarily Buffett's worried about that. But, when your sales, and this is the recent earnings report, are up 6%, it's just, they can't double their iPhone sales. In China, they're into my Apple here. In China, they're facing a lot more struggle than they had in the past because there's just a lot more competition. Chinese phone makers can make pretty good phones. The Huawei's, I think OnePlus is another brand, Xiaomi, and there's probably a couple others I'm missing. I'm just right off the top of my head. I've actually had a Huawei phone myself. It was totally fine. I mean, it's just these days a lot more competition, and that's just the Chinese makers, and then you have the Korean phone makers, right? So Samsung, and actually I think LG might be out of the market on that. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but Samsung makes a pretty good phone, and I live in Korea, and a lot of people have Samsungs, a lot of people have Apple. The Chinese phones though aren't that popular here, and I'd be curious in USA if you guys are buying Chinese phones or not. But I can just see that yes, Apple, they still make money, but just they there's only so much more you can grow. Also says here, net seller, Berkshire reported 34.6 billion of net share sales in the 3 months through September. So you can see that it's just selling a bunch of stock. The company has struggled to find ways to deploy its cash pile, as Buffett found market prices too high to find attractive deals. At the annual meeting, Buffett and Berkshire wasn't in a rush to spend. This is a quote, I guess. Unless we think we're doing something that has very little risk and can make us a lot of money. So if you interpret that, he's like, well, there's there's too much risk out there, and we don't think necessarily we can make that much money. I mean, like so that's what it says. Unless we think we're going to do something that has very little risk and can make us a lot of money. One of the things I want to point out too with this is, and I show this from time to time on the channel, this is the Shiller PE ratio. So essentially, look at the market, what's the price of stocks compared to how much companies earn. We got a read of 36.46. The all-time high for this thing is 44.19. Generally, I always tell you guys, if this indicator hits 40, probably time to get out of the market. I mean, we've been running hot for a while. And we have, big events coming up. The election, which is in a couple of days. We also have the Fed's going to make a decision, and we have still uncertainty in the Middle East. And essentially, so when people talk about valuations of companies, right? If you think companies are overvalued and they're not growing that much, as Warren Buffett said, unless we think we're going to make a lot of money or there's little risk, there's not worth buying anything. And that's his. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what's coming from them. More where it says here, higher yields on cash holdings set the bar a little higher for other opportunities, right? So if you can sit on cash and safely, buy bonds or whatever, I mean, why not just do that? Or collect your dividend payments, etc. This is actually a chart of Buffett and they're just, look, when you get to a certain amount where you have just like billions of dollars of holdings, it's, you're getting tons and tons of dividends coming in. But essentially, this is, again, his dividend interest income coming in, right? You can see here, and it's been growing over time. This is also his cash holdings, and it's actually really gone up considerably. Now, you can certainly make the case that, he's really bearish and he'll eventually put his money back in the market when he thinks things are cheap. But it hasn't been that quite yet. I mean, his cash reserves have really jumped. And I think a lot of this is, again, is your Bank of America and your Apple sales. That's sort of why we track this stuff. Now, it's interesting because compared to other, hedge funds out there or, big names on Wall Street, they always have something that they want to buy. And it's always exciting because essentially that's what viewers want to hear, and that's what gets your TV ratings. So it's hard to make a TV show on, say, CNBC or whatever, because essentially every day they have to come in and say, hey, these are my hottest picks for today, or on YouTube, hey, these are my hottest picks, etc. Where Warren Buffett's like, hey, unless we see something with little risk and we can make a lot of money, we're not buying, and it's not fun. But Buffett is a well-seasoned, experienced investor. And sort of why we track this guy, and you could certainly make the case that the best investor of all time. So that's why I said do take heed. Now, I do understand that young people don't care what Buffett says or does. I get that. Buffett's not interested in Tesla. He's not interested in crypto. So young people are like, oh, I don't want to buy insurance. That's boring. I don't want to buy Coca-Cola. But the dude makes money and he's got a history of it. Let's see what else he has to say here. Interest and other investment income has more than doubled at the conglomerate's insurance business, reaching $3.5 billion in 3 months. I show you guys some charts there. But Buffett is actually getting old. Buffett, 94, has used some of the cash flow to repurchase some of its own stock, right? So he did some of that. When in doubt, buy your own stock, I guess. Though even had become a costler recently, shares of Berkshire Hathaway gained 25% this year, boosting its market value to $974 billion. Market cap eclipsed $1 trillion for the first time on August 28th. So it looks like they, went up and then went back down in terms of the value of this thing. Talking about Berkshire Hathaway. Also says here, this past quarter, Berkshire declined to buy back its own stock for the first time since it changed its policy in 2018. Interesting. Huh. So they're sitting on cash. They're not buying a bunch of stuff, and they're not even buying their own stuff. Interesting. Here's a quote here. I think investors are going to be disappointed by that, and that's Seifert. Okay. Operating earnings, Berkshire operating earnings fell 6% from a year earlier to about 10.09 billion. As insurance underwriting earnings slumped, the company also recorded 1.1 billion in foreign currency exchange loss during the quarter. What else we got here? Earnings from underwriting at the firm's collection of insurance businesses plunged 69%. The insurance thing is an interesting one. So what's he got? I think he's got a bunch of Geico. And I don't even, they're not even in his top holdings. Actually, this Chubb is there. That's interesting. I thought Geico was one of his big holdings. But at least according to this was on CNBC. I was like, okay, what is Buffett's top holdings? It says Apple, American Express, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, Chevron, Occidental. You got Moody's in there. I thought Geico. I must be crazy. Huh. You guys can correct me wrong. I must be crazy. I thought for sure we had a bunch of Geico. Huh. Maybe not as much as he used to, I guess. Oh, actually mentions it here. Berkshire estimated that the impact of Hurricane Helene, okay, on its earnings this quarter came to 565 million. Hurricane Milton is expected to result in a pre-tax hit of 1.3 billion to 1.5 billion in the fourth quarter. While earned, this is where I mentioned it. While earned premiums grew at car insurer Geico, they declined about 5.6% across Berkshire's reinsurance business. Seifert said that they could signal that Berkshire is embracing a risk-off strategy this quarter. That's interesting. Yeah, Buffett doesn't seem to want to be taking many risks. I mean that's what I'm reading on this here, and that's why I'm showing you guys these headlines of Apple's earnings, where sales are kind of flat. These were the numbers here, and guys, that's why I'm showing these numbers. It's not like Apple doesn't make money. It's just that if you're betting on Apple to grow in the future, it may not grow crazy amounts like in the past. These were some of the and from the earnings report again. Wall Street can make estimates, say, oh, we expect this, and then they can decide whether or not to set the bar low or whatever. But it looks like it kind of came in line. Like for example, revenue here, Wall Street was estimating 94.58 billion. Revenue came in at 94.93 billion, so kind of what is expected. So it's hard for Apple to massively beat. The other issue as well, which I thought was interesting, they were talking about forecasting the future and talking about Apple. And the reason I'm talking about Apple, because this is Buffett's top holding. We just, the article was just talking about Geico might be, struggling from what's going on with the hurricane stuff. And actually, he's been talking about Buffett here, selling off Bank of America. I still don't get the Sirius radio thing. And I've asked you guys before about this on the channel. A couple people in the community have it. I just can't comment it because I've never used the Sirius satellite thing. And if you don't know it, I think it's like a satellite car radio. So I'm assuming I guess it must be really, really clear signal. I don't even know the pricing of this thing. I will just call it Netflix for radio, I guess. And maybe Howard Stern is on that thing. And I think, and you guys can let me know if Joe Rogan or something, like what big names are on Sirius Radio, or there might be really good music things. I know that's a competitive market, because these days I can just get like YouTube Premium and have music, or like a Spotify, or I can do Apple Music, and I don't know if like Google offers a music service. They probably do. Actually, your Google service would be YouTube. I was thinking like something Android, but I guess it's all same. But I wanted to show you guys this too, talking about Apple. It says here, Apple's forecast implies a slight miss for December quarter. The stock slips more. So it says, near the end of the earnings call remarks, CFO, so that's the Chief Financial Officer, Luca Maestre said Apple expects December quarter growth to grow, quote, low to mid-single digits, right? So you're not getting double-digit growth. And then it also says at the midpoint, that would be slightly below Wall Street's expectations for 127 billion, implying a 7% year-over-year. And then this is sort of what we're talking about. And you have to think about, okay, how long is Buffett gonna wait? How long is this gonna take? And again, I think this goes back to the mind of an investor, where patience is everything, and essentially wait for the right opportunity. You don't have to buy everything all the time. And I don't think Buffett's losing sleep over, whether or not he bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin. And I mentioned the Bitcoin thing because that's essentially what all the kids on all the rages on the YouTubes and the social media kind of stuff. But not everyone, wants to do that. I think, for, someone like Buffett, just stick with the slow and steady, like turtle stuff, wins the race. I know it's not exciting, but it wins. And the other thing too, which I think is probably going to be an interesting change, is, and I'm just showing you guys Berkshire Hathaway's cash pile here. When Warren Buffett eventually pass away, and I hopefully not soon, but eventually, he's just getting old. When his second in command will take the reins, part of this cash pile, he'll probably the new person will probably want to make sort of a name for himself and start saying, hey, I can manage the fund too. And what's going to be interesting is whether or not current investors stick around, because Berkshire Hathaway still has a name for itself in terms of branding there. But Charlie Munger passed away recently, and like I said, will this fund still continue without Warren Buffett? And I mean, it's going to continue in terms of it'll exist, but will it have the same sort of clout and investor excitement? That'll be interesting to see, and it remains to be seen. It could be we're just going into a meme stock driven world, and not even stocks, just crypto driven world where nothing is connected to reality anymore. But for me, I think a lot of this stuff is bubblicious. It just feels like that, and that's why we track this stuff together. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. What do you think about Buffett just sitting on a bunch of cash, and what are you up to? I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video.